Good morning. Welcome to the Women in Ministry series. This morning, I would like to introduce to you Jenny Gallo from Carrot Top Studio. Jenny is an artist, and part of her artistry is designing, creating, and making stoles. So welcome, Jenny. Would you like to introduce yourself a little bit?
Good morning, Susan, and your community. It's so wonderful to be here. Yeah, Jenny Gallo, owner and artist, and all things hands on deck for Carrot Top Studio. I do it all: clean the bathrooms, accounting, everything. I trained as an elementary art teacher and did that for 6 years in Houston, Texas, and yeah, and now Carrot Top Studio is how I express my artist abilities.
All right. So how did you start making stoles?
Yeah, so as I said, I taught and am a teacher at heart, and that was a great way to start being an artist. And then I had two children and was chose to be a stay-at-home mom in their early years. But when they went off to elementary school, had a Holy Spirit moment actually. I had a phone call from a friend who knew me well from the volunteer work that I'd done in many different areas of my home church. And she said, "Have you ever seen worship banners in a church?" And I had. Our church at that time didn't have them. She was on the worship committee, and they were exploring adding church banners to the worship sanctuary. And so I led a team. There were six of us, and we designed them for the entire church year calendar and created them. And that church is still using them today. It's been almost 25 years. They probably need to be updated. But that was a great experience. And I've been sewing since I was a child, thank you to my mother and grandmother, and didn't know that I needed to revisit that as an artist. And it just felt so right. And so I explored the idea of creating a banner business. The trick with that is that worship sanctuaries come in all different sizes and architecture styles. And I really believe that worship banners are not one size fits all. And so I struggled with how to enter into that space. My husband, who is always thinking outside the box, suggested that I try clergy stoles instead, because in essence, a stole is two skinny banners.
Mm-hmm.
Who would have thought of that? And I
Mm-hmm.
objected for a while because that was just too small to work. Those first banners I made were 21 feet long.
Wow.
They were quite large, yes. But he persisted and I dove in, and the first stoles were created, and I sold them on eBay, of all places. That was back in the day. And, God had set the stage well for me, go figure. And I'd already been selling on eBay some other types of items. So I had that in my wheelhouse. And yeah, as I say, one thing led to another, and the stoles sold immediately. So there eventually was a website, and we've had lots of upgrades over the years. And I'm just really, really thankful to have been led this way.
So I had been meaning to email you so when I served a couple of Sundays in a row, which is rare for a large multi-staff church, that I would serve, but summer vacations, I was filling in, and it's ordinary time.
Yes.
And so to our viewers, Jenny is very committed to the fact that we tell a story with the stoles, that's part of the artistry, and it's part of telling the gospel story, or whatever, that is an extension of the gospel, or the message of faith, is what we wear. And so in our church, we normally get there the pastors who are on that morning get there a little early, and we'll greet people in the pews. And I had a green stole on, and a child, when I wished her good morning, she said, "You match." And she pointed to
Oh,
me and the banner, and sure enough, the greens were just right on. And I thought of you immediately. I said, "Yep, it's that extension of what we do when we worship, and the artistry and the visual nature of it, and making that connection." She made it like that.
that's
Um,
just so wonderful. What a great example. And I was hoping that we'd get to talk about this, that 40 to 60% of a faith community, they're visual learnof. And that's one of the reasons why we include the visual in worship. And many examples in the Old Testament, um, of this goes way back. This is not a new thing.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, that's great. Good story.
yeah. All right. So how did you, I was fascinated that you have your own studio. So how did
Mm.
you develop a studio for your artwork and for your stole making? How did that come about?
Yeah, so I've always been a creative and have always, no matter where we've moved around the country a little bit, had a creative space in our home. When the business came to be, the studio was in my dark and dingy basement in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Yet it was great to have that space. It's just wonderful to have the flexibility of being able to work when, at that point in time, when my children didn't need me. They and my husband were the priority. So often it was early mornings, late nights. We now live in Michigan, in the Detroit area, and we've been here 9 years. And our home has a lower level that I claimed, and that is the studio. It was set up for, like an apartment for, the person that lived here prior had parents living with them. They were a single parent, and the grandparents lived in the apartment, and now it's Carrot Top Studio, and it's filled with light, and I just, have a lot of joy every time I walk into the space. I'm ready to work whenever.
Yeah. No, I
Yeah.
if you visit Carrot Top Studio, the website, you can actually you see pictures, and
Hmm.
it you're exactly right. It is filled with light. So
Hmm.
that's wonderful. All right. So we talked a little bit
Hmm.
about stole colors and the liturgical seasons, and that in the mainline Protestant tradition, ordinary time over the summer is green. The color is
Hmm.
green.
Hmm.
What's your best stole? Do you have a best color selling color for your stoles?
Yeah, interestingly, I sell more red stoles than anything else. And
Really?
it's just, it's fascinating because people buy them for Pentecost, which most traditions just celebrate for one day, or many traditions celebrate just for one day. So you wouldn't think that that would be the case. But we sell them for ordinations and installations also. And I just think, red itself is so joyful, and ordinations are just an amazing celebration. So I think it's something, that's my top seller. So,
Wow. I would not, I
yeah,
mean, I just assumed green because
right,
ordinary time,
right,
because that's the color that pastors are going to wear more often. But
correct,
what you're saying is it's really the special occasion, especially that the ordination and installation,
right.
that celebration of that moment, that milestone.
Right. Secondly, I sell a lot of purple and blue stools for Advent.
Okay.
That the season of Advent is the second bestseller, and I think there again, it's just a really joyful time, and people like to connect. I have clients that buy different Advent stools each year because they like to connect to whatever their church is actually focusing on during that particular Advent season. It's a time when churches kind of change it up, even though it's the
Yeah.
overall same theme
Yeah.
each year.
All right. So that's interesting. Well,
Hmm.
that goes into my next question is what's your best selling stole or stole design? But maybe I guess that's one question, but my question is also like, how high is your repeat customers? I mean, it sounds like when people find you, they stay with you.
It's just really, I cannot tell you how blessed I feel. I have about a 75% retention rate, with clients. Yeah, a lot of the clergy members see this as an accessory that helps draw their congregation in visually, and especially people that robe up every
Mhm.
Sunday. Not all clergy wear robes, you know that. Your audience
Mhm.
knows that. But the ones that do, I think it's, they get tired of putting that same robe on every Sunday, and so this is something that makes it a little bit unique. And you'd think I would talk about my Advent stoles as being the number one best-selling design, but actually, a labyrinth stole is my number one design.
No
Um,
kidding.
if I look at the entire 18 years of being in business, and I think I sell them to clergy, people that have labyrinths at their churches, or people that are labyrinth leaders. That's a thing. Ministers that are doing peace and healing ministry, chaplains. Um, yeah, or I actually sell a lot of them during seasons of preparation and contemplation Lent. So I do a lot of labyrinth stoles during the season of Lent. It's a nice
Wow.
connection.
All right. So I'm gonna do you have any labyrinth stoles?
I do. I do. I wondered if you'd like to see the studio, and I have actually a labyrinth stole on my design wall right now that's in process, and I can show you that one.
All right. Well, let's I'm going to thank you for your time right now.
Mm.
And we're going to ask our viewers to stay tuned for our next installment where Jenny's going to take us on a tour of the studio and we'll get to see a labyrinth stole.
Can't
Thank,
wait. Thanks, Susan.
thank you. We'll see you at the next broadcast.
Bye.